everyone, and welcome to the Turning Pain into Strength podcast. I am your host, Michelle Lieberwein. So, in this episode, I talk with Tina Djuretic. She is the author of Finding My Sovereignty. Tina talks about healing from childhood trauma and toxic relationships. We also discuss her experiences with narcissistic partners and life in a Christian cult, and that was really interesting. We also discuss why we should embrace our triggers and finding forgiveness in the healing process. So join us for an inspiring conversation about being true to ourselves and finding personal freedom. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's a silent D, so it's Djuretic.
Djuretic. Okay. Tina Djuretic. So we are here. We're going to talk about your memoir and just what you have gone through so that you can help somebody else.
Excellent. Good. That's what we like, isn't it?
Yes, we're all here just to help each other.
Absolutely. At least we should be, right?
Yeah, that is
These
very
platforms,
true.
these platforms are such a good place to, be able to do that. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm an author. I have written a memoir called Finding My Sovereignty.
Yes.
And it just came out on Amazon in September. So it's just been a couple of months. It's still relatively new.
Mhm.
And essentially, if I give the quick version of what it's about, this is about how childhood trauma, it's a memoir, so it's my story, but it's about how childhood trauma, especially personally, I blocked my childhood trauma.
Mhm.
So having no minimal memory of childhood, let's put it that way. I remembered the broad strokes of things that happened, but no details at all.
Wow.
Names, people, teachers, schools we went to, not even a clue, zero. Really just
Wow.
major blockage. Um, but despite whether or not I remembered childhood, it was still playing havoc in my adult life, in my dating world, with my relationships. Triggers were still strong, right, as they are. And I always thought that I was better off for not remembering childhood. My sisters
Sure.
remembered everything. They weren't better for it. We always said I was the lucky one. And yet it played out in my relationships.
Okay.
So it wasn't until I was, in my late 40s that I started to go, is it really better that I don't remember?
Yeah.
Because when I broke up with the third partner, I
Right.
was never like a serial monogamist or any of those things in life. I had a long time between partners, very few partners, three, in fact, major ones to speak of. By the time the third one and I broke up, I realized I had a pattern of dating narcissists.
Okay. All right.
And yes, so
At
this
least
is
you
where
realized it.
yeah, and I don't even know if I had that word just yet.
Okay.
Ironically, the third one I dated, who was the biggest narcissist of them all, is the one who taught me that word
Wow.
because he constantly accused his ex-wife of being a narcissist because that's what narcissists do, don't they? They lay
Right.
point over there, point over there, point over there. So I really learned this word from him and then realized that, in fact, he's the narcissist. So this triggered. Oof, well, it brought me to my knees when I broke up with this third partner. I really thought he was the one. I
Mm.
really did. It was a really beautiful romantic love story. So, of course, you have that fairy tale tied to it. I
Sure.
thought he was the one, um, and when it ended, it really brought me to my knees. And not just because the relationship ended,
Okay.
but because I understood I had a pattern, because he was my mother.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I just went, wait a minute. It's the moment where I stopped asking the question, what's wrong with all of the men out there? And I
Wow.
started to go, what's wrong with me? That
Okay.
all I date is that kind of man. What is wrong with me that I only attract these emotionally unavailable men into my life? And when I turned the question inward, I found the answers. I started a spiritual awakening.
Okay.
And I started to heal my childhood trauma so that I could make better choices as I got older. And that's when I wrote the book. Um, that's kind of how it all started and all began.
So I have a couple questions
Sure.
because I researched a lot of things and I wrote a page of questions for
Okay.
you.
Okay.
But the day that you decided that this is not for me, this is not my life, and this guy, you broke up with him, so you realized I don't want this for my life. What was that day like? Was it the day you guys broke up? How long of a period was it before you realized you're going to start your healing journey?
So it got prolonged a little bit because of my living circumstances, meaning
Hmm.
him and I dated for a year and then I moved in with him. And uh, when we broke up, I had to move out. It was his house.
Okay.
And he lives like, almost an hour from here, really 45 minutes from here.
Okay.
But if you're taking public transit, it's a couple hours. I don't drive, I don't have a
Okay.
car. And also my full-time job, I'm a tour guide. So in the summertime, I'm on the road all the time, right? I do these anywhere between 5 and 10 day bus tours throughout the Rocky Mountains, throughout Canada.
Wow.
So I wasn't there. We broke up in the middle of my tour season. And
Oh, okay.
I was like, how am I even supposed to find a place to live
When you're working.
when I'm not even here, right? Yeah, you've got to be around. And then I've always lived downtown Vancouver. I like to be near the ocean. Moving to the suburbs to be with him was a huge, huge deal for me, especially because we knew that I would not have transportation.
Okay.
It's more farmland out there. And so you didn't have a lot of buses. Downtown, I have all the buses I need. I can walk to everything.
Hmm.
If you're not around in the first couple of days of apartments coming available downtown, you're not getting one.
Oh, okay.
So this was the complication for me. So although we broke up and it was really a quiet breakup, I mean, in the way that for I'd say 3 or 4 months, my alarm bells were going off. I mean, they were
Okay.
going off at the beginning if I really go back and think about it, right? But I wasn't listening to them. They were going off constantly when he started criticizing me.
Okay.
When the criticism just kept coming and coming, and I finally kept feeling myself going, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Like it got really ridiculous, actually.
Hmm.
That's when I started to really like those alarm bells were going off because we thought he had PTSD before that.
Okay.
And I made a lot of excuses for his bad behavior because of the PTSD. He was a firefighter.
Okay.
He even went to the doctor, and or at least this is what he told me. She told him he had PTSD.
Okay.
So I Googled all PTSD and I saw a lot of similarities. And so I was making excuses for the bad behavior, if you will.
Sure.
When the criticism was never ending, I went, that's not PTSD.
No, that's meanness.
Right. And so I sat down and I made a list
Oh,
because it
wow.
really got to the right. You know, you're in trouble when you're making a list,
Yes.
right? You know, you're already in trouble. And so, but I was on the road and I was coming home and I was just like, what is happening with us? And so I sat down and I went, I don't like this. I don't like what's happening. I don't know. Can we repair this? And so that's when I sat and made the list of all the things I loved about him and all
Mhm.
of the things that I didn't even dare to voice out loud to a girlfriend before that. But because it was me in my private hotel room making a list that no one else could see, I
Yeah.
was really honest with myself.
Mhm.
And by the time it was done and I looked at the list, I just went, oh, like that was such a gut punch
Wow.
when you realize you're dating your parent, right? When you go, oh my God, like
Hmm.
this couldn't be more blatantly my mother because she's bipolar as well. So when I got home from that trip, which would have been maybe a week or two later, I was already for like 2 weeks wondering
Okay.
what am I sat with that traveling. I knew our relationship was over. I knew that that was a deal breaker for me. I would never date, another bipolar person again. But it also just brought me so much heartache because I loved him so much. And
Hoping he would
I thought-
change.
I knew he wouldn't. You see, that was the difference.
Oh, okay.
Having had so much experience with narcissists, I knew
Mhm.
this was a deal breaker,
All right.
that he cannot change. No, that he would not change. I shouldn't say that. That's not fair. There are bipolar people that definitely take, the steps they need
They
to be
do the
taking.
work. Yeah.
They do the work. Yeah. But I knew he wouldn't. I knew it wasn't going to happen. I knew it was over. I knew that was the line for me.
Hmm.
And that was the heartbreak, was knowing that I was going to come home and that this was going to be over. And the minute I got home from that trip, within 12 hours, we were already having an argument that he started, obviously, because he always did. And we spent the night not sleeping in the same bed. Hadn't seen him in 3 weeks. Come home, we have a fight. We're not even sleeping in the same bed. I'm devastated.
Sure.
And the next morning is when I just said, we got to talk about this. And we broke up at that moment. Yeah. Yeah.
And what
And
was
then
his
I was stuck
reaction?
living there for 3 months. That was the really nasty
Ooh,
part, because that's when he turned, because that's when the bipolar came out then.
okay. How
Because
was his reaction at first when you said, we're done? Like, this is not working out.
I actually, technically, really, if I think about it, he's the one who ended it.
Oh, okay. He
He
needed
knew
to
it
have
was
that
coming.
power.
He needed that power, exactly. And when he came into the room that morning to basically get his clothes, is what he was doing, because he was
Mhm.
going, just getting dressed. Actually, he had the day off. And he kind of snuck in and saw that I was awake, and he just sort of sheepishly, said, "Good morning." And I said, "Good morning." And I'm like, we can't keep, this is crazy. Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about this. And so he's like, "Yeah, good idea." And really what I said was, "You don't want me to live here anymore, do you?" And he's like, "I really don't." And I'm like, that's how we broke up. It wasn't even about what was really happening. I was just like, "You just don't want me to even be here anymore." And he said, "I really don't." And we actually had this nice conversation, if you will. I mean, how nice is a breakup conversation? But we actually
Right.
had a calm conversation. It's not your fault. I moved in with you too quickly after breaking up with my wife. I need time to heal. I need to be alone. Well, okay, great.
Yeah.
And then he said something to the effect of, "I don't know what's wrong with me." Because he'd been going through a lot of depression over the last few months. And I said, I'm worried about you, if I'm being honest, like, as your friend. I mean, we were friends for 25 years. So this is
Oh.
where I said, "You know what, let's put our relationship aside. As your friend, I'm
Hmm.
worried about you." And he said, I'm worried about me too. I don't know what's wrong with me." And that was the moment where I went, "Do I tell him?" Because
Oh.
this is the moment where he's going to turn, right? This is
Right.
where they go ugly. And I thought, I got nothing left to lose here. It's already over. And so I said,
Right.
"I think I know what's wrong with you." I said, I, I think you're bipolar." I was so
You're
scared to
so
even say
scared.
it, right? To even, once it's out your mouth, you can't take it back. And I was so scared to even say it, but I finally did. "I think you're bipolar." And then I literally braced for
Yeah,
the attack.
sure.
And that's when he surprised me and went, "I think I am too." And I went, "What?" And he said, "My ex-wife put up with it as long as she could." And that, I just thought, oh, this isn't the first time you're even hearing this.
Right.
And the deception was even bigger, because I thought, I grew up with a bipolar mother. You know how much, I hated her before my healing journey. Right now, I have no hate.
Sure.
I only have forgiveness. And so you've been lying to me. You knew this about yourself.
Mhm.
So
No
that was
warning.
it. Yeah, he said, I think I need to call the doctor and maybe get help." And I was like, "I'm proud of you for doing that."
Sure.
Within 8 hours, this had turned around. I went downstairs to invite him up to dinner. "Hey, I made dinner. Would you like to come?" And that's when he attacked. Because of course he'd put away a case of beer by now. He's been in the man
Oh,
drinking
okay.
beer, watching zombies on the television, just changing the story in his mind. And when I came downstairs, it was like, "You're the one who's bipolar. This is all your fault.
Mhm.
You're the devil." And it was like, "Thank you for proving my point."
Yeah.
He
And did
pretty
he
much,
re and he didn't realize that at that moment that he swung from understanding and to that jerk mean person?
I don't think so. And it was the
Wow.
only, no, I know he didn't. And it was the only moment in the 2 years we were dating where I was afraid.
Oh, wow.
The
Okay.
rage that was coming out of him. And he, 6'2", I'm 5'6". So when he stood over me and sort of got right in my face and literally put a finger in my face, he'd never done that before. But
Yeah.
it was the look I saw in his eyes that frightened me because I went, "Oh, I know you, devil. That's the
Yeah.
same demon that used to live in my mother's eyes." I saw the flip switch, and then I was stuck there for 3 months while I looked for an apartment. Well, I was coming and going on tours,
Sure.
and he never went back. Once he flipped the switch and became, the devil,
Mm-hmm.
that was it. That's what I had to live with for the next 3 months. Just
Wow.
either ignoring me or berating me. It was
Mhm.
awful. Yeah, it was really awful. So yeah,
Wow. I
yeah.
think the ignoring is a little worse. It's like I'd rather you yell and get it over
Mhm.
with, but that silence is such control. They have that control, and it's a big one.
Oh,
You're
yes,
not worthy of being spoken to it until I decide I'm going to talk to you.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine 3 months with that. That's,
Yeah, it was the mind games were unbelievable, and I shut down. I had to shut down.
yeah.
I
Right.
wasn't healing yet, right? I was in my pain, and well, on top of that, it unleashed my childhood.
Okay, so you started to remember.
I started having nightmares that I couldn't define. I wouldn't remember them in the morning, but I started having nightmares. I literally felt like someone was sitting on my chest while I was trying to sleep.
Oh,
Sometimes I felt like someone was choking me. Like the darkness came out to play, that's for sure. I mean, I was living in that
yeah.
house and it was just soaked in it. And I didn't know, I didn't understand that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie,
Wow.
it was really, and I didn't cry. And it was only because I shut down.
Okay, no emotions. The wall is,
No emotions. I knew I couldn't handle them.
yeah, true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew I would deal with them once I moved out, but I knew I could not deal with it under his roof.
So you moved out in 3 months or
Yeah.
so, and you got your
Mhm.
own place, or did you move in with someone?
Nope, nope. I've always had my own place, so I went back to having my own place. Yeah.
Okay, and when did your healing start?
Oof,
Well,
like
besides
that minute.
immediately.
Almost that minute. So
For
once I was in
sure.
my own, right? Once I was in my own place and I was back downtown, which means I had access to walking where I wanted to go and,
Freedom.
again, freedom, exactly.
Mhm.
Because what is the first step of every narcissist? It's separation and isolation, right? You
Right.
moved to the boondocks where I was trapped and couldn't go anywhere. So not even there wasn't even a
Yeah.
park nearby, right? I couldn't even get green space nearby where he lived. So once I was back downtown, I went to a girlfriend that goes to a lot of workshops and listens to a lot of teachers, and I never did those things in my
Okay.
life.
You
I
weren't
had one
ready.
foot into spiritualism, but I didn't go to all these workshops and things like that.
Mhm.
And so I said to her, I am desperate. I need a teacher, a healer. I need advice. That's where I stopped asking that question, what's wrong with men? And I turned it around and went, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me that I only attract this kind of man? And that's why I wanted help. So she introduced me to a channeler,
Mhm. Okay.
and this
What is a
channeler,
channeler?
a channeler,
A channeler.
channeler.
Okay.
Yeah.
She channels the negative energy, those negative cords and all the bad energy right out after a lot of
No,
sessions.
no, I used Reiki for that. Actually, I did a couple
Okay.
sessions of Reiki to pull that stuff out. A
Okay.
channeler is someone almost like a medium, except mediums quite specifically speak to, your loved ones that have passed on. But a channeler
Right.
can hear and see. So each channeler will have different gifts. They can usually hear and see.
Okay.
And so we all have our own spirit team that guides us. So when she channels, not only is she speaking to my team, but she has her own team there that is always there. And so she's literally channeling the messages that you need to hear.
Okay. Okay.
So it's very specific. It would be like having a tarot reading, except she doesn't need the tools because it's literally she's just streaming
Okay.
it. We sit down in a cafe. She puts this protective bubble around us because I thought it was an odd choice to be in a cafe. There was so much noise.
Right.
She wasn't from this area. She was actually coming down for a couple of days. So we didn't go to her house because she didn't have one here. So but anyways, we sit down. Her and I, the first thing we did was walk through some past lives so that we could clean up some karma. And we did it
Okay.
literally right there. We talked about this one past life that was creating trouble for me in this life. We healed it within seconds, like it was crazy. And I thought, wow, that was so fast and so easy. And she's like, well, it's past life stuff. You can heal it with a mantra, with a saying, by cutting a
Yeah.
cord. It shouldn't be so hard. Then we walked through this life. We walked through sort of the big major moments, and this is her talking, not me, her picking out the major moments, what it was like to be in my mother's womb, like right back to the beginning, the major sort of spiritual, not spiritual moments, soul defining moments of my
Okay.
life.
Yeah.
And then she did the same for my parents.
Okay.
And that was interesting to me. She didn't deep dive into their past because, first of all,
Mhm.
that's their story. But what
Right.
she did was she showed me the generational trauma.
Okay. Where it started.
Yes. And that really had a big impact on me
Okay.
to, first of all, find the understanding that my soul chose to come into this lifetime,
Okay.
chose the family I'm going to be born into, chose the people who will be my parents, chose the lessons I was going to learn. This is where you take ownership, stop playing the role of the victim,
Mm.
and you start your healing journey. So, first was owning my part in it, meaning
Okay.
that my soul chose this lifetime. That's ownership, right? So,
Right.
owned that. Okay, yep, I understand it. I get the concept. I own it now. Then she showed me the generational trauma so that I could also have understanding that my parents did it to me because it's all they knew. Does that
All
make it
they
okay?
knew. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it didn't make it okay. That wasn't the point of
Yeah.
the lesson. The point of the lesson was to see that this just goes from generation to generation to generation because this is all they knew.
They did their best and it just wasn't good enough for what you needed.
Absolutely, right? It also gave me the grace to be able to forgive them.
Okay.
That's
That's
where this is going, right?
so
You need
huge.
to forgive. And if you understand their own pain, it does not excuse it, what they
No.
did to us, but it does help you to understand what their conditioning was as well, right?
Right.
Then when that was over and I had some things to think about, obviously, right?
Just a
Lots to
little.
think about, just a little bit to think about. Then she dropped it on my head like, by the way, where do we want you to go with this? Oh, we want you to write a memoir. And I was like, what? Where did that come from? Right. And so she told me I would write the memoir. And I said, God, when am I supposed to even have time to do
Right.
that? Like, how am I supposed to do that? And she's like, don't you worry. It's going to take you 2 years and you will find the time. I was like, okay, I'll find the time, right? Okay. And so she said, you're going to just write this memoir. It's going to be about your childhood. It's going to go through your relationships. It's just going to show because you've had so much experience with sociopathic, narcissistic, people. She says, you're going to write about this because if you've been through it, other people have been through it.
Sure.
So not only will you find your own healing when you write,
Hmm.
but what you write is going to bring healing to so many other people. When you're finished with that, you're going to write a workbook
Oh,
because
wow.
once people read the memoir, they're going to want to know what steps did you take then to heal. So
Hmm.
thank God she told me that at the time because in the 4 years it took me from day one to until the day it was published to do the memoir, I
Hmm.
was taking notes on how I healed. And I
Wow.
would not have done that had I have not known. And then I'd have to be go, "God, what did I do back?" You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah. So luckily she set me up to know that that was what was coming next. And yeah, that's where we're at.
Did
I'm
you remember that you were in a cult? Because I remember you wrote that you were in a cult. Did
I
you
was.
remember that, or
Mhm.
did that come up when you were writing your book?
I remembered that.
Okay, because that seems huge.
Huge. Yes, yes.
And you
I
said
couldn't
it
tell
was
you the name of
a
anyone in that church or anything like that, except the
Mhm.
pastor, but yes, I remember,
It
sure.
was you said it was a Christian cult. So what
Yeah.
is that about? Because I heard like the Mormons have a cult but I really haven't heard about a Christian cult. Are there beliefs, the Christian belief, and I understand the Christian belief, but when you called it a cult, I feel like that wasn't good.
So here's to me, I think that we need to redefine what a cult is
Okay.
because when we think about in the 70s, when all these
Right.
cults started to come out, right? Drinking the Kool-Aid, right? We know what we're talking about. I mean, these were cults, right? So
Right.
we kind of have this idea in our mind that if it doesn't end in either some massive sexual trauma or everybody offing themselves, it wasn't a cult.
Hmm.
But really, the very definitions of cults are isolation and separation,
Hmm.
don't ask questions,
Right.
and fear mongering.
Okay.
This is
Kind of like
religion.
a narcissistic bubble.
Well, who starts cults but narcissists,
Yeah.
right?
This is all
Right?
connected for you.
It's all
It's
connected, exactly. And
so
so
young.
this was a church, but because this church didn't allow us to speak to anyone who didn't go to the church, there's your
Okay.
separation and isolation, pulled me and my sisters out of public school, made us go to their school,
Okay.
which wasn't even a real school, by the way. So it was more like
Oh,
we were homeschooling in a building that we paid to go to, right? Because they're
okay.
going to get their money from you, right? Without a real teacher or anything. Um, Separation and isolation. We
Right.
had to go to church 4 nights a week, 7 days a week at school. Brainwashing. This is
True.
a cult.
Hmm.
Do not ask questions. Don't question
Sure.
God. This makes you a cult. And we're not preaching about the love of God, which was God's message. We're preaching about fear mongering. You're going to hell if you don't listen. Hell, 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 hell. Well, you give that message to a couple of narcissistic parents. Imagine how much they're going to run with that fear mongering message. So we had the church
Okay.
already fear mongering, and then you add our parents who just this was a hell. It was hell. Yeah,
Okay. It
yeah,
was
and it
your
was a
hell on earth, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah, very
Wow.
cult-like. We weren't allowed to have a television. We weren't allowed to have music unless it was Christian music. We weren't allowed to cut our hair as women or wear makeup or jewelry. I was a kid, so I didn't have those, I didn't have
Hmm.
jewelry or makeup, but the girls were only allowed to wear dresses, no pants, no swimsuits, no swimming unless you're swimming in a dress,
Wow.
really. So really strict, strict rules
Isolation.
and
Wow.
isolation. Yeah.
How is that a lot of healing from that time? Did that go on until your teens?
That went on. I left home I was barely 17 and I left home. I
Okay.
was in grade 12. I was still in high school. Um, so I was working full-time job, two jobs, putting myself through high school, paying rent, and just
Wow.
in survival mode, as you can imagine.
Wow, that's huge. How did you
Yeah.
get the bravery to leave?
They actually kind of kicked me out, really.
Oh, okay. Were you
So,
defiant or were
oh,
you glad that
definitely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You bet. I mean, as far as anyone else is concerned, like when you think about the rules we had to follow, we
Yeah.
didn't swear, we didn't cheat, we didn't drink, we didn't, date boys. Like we were the best children ever, but we were lippy. That's
Okay.
for sure. Everyone in my family is super lippy, me the most.
Okay.
So now I'm in the middle of grade 12. My girlfriend becomes pregnant and she asks me to be her Lamaze coach to go to the classes with her
Okay.
when the baby's born. So, but this is on a Tuesday night when we have church. So I go home and I say, listen, one of the girls at school is pregnant. She's scared. She's asked me to be her coach. I'd like to do this for her. It's
Mm-hmm.
on Tuesday nights. I know we have church. Can I just skip church for the next, whatever, 6 to 8 weeks and go to these Lamaze classes? Well, oh my God, my mother had a conniption fit. Walk out that door on Tuesday. Don't ever come back. And I went, yeah, okay, deal. And that's what I did. I walked out. Yeah.
Wow. That's bravery. So much courage and bravery. The
Yeah,
fear.
my last straw.
Yeah. Well, where did you go with this girlfriend?
No, no, she was still living with her parents, actually.
Okay.
My older sister, who was a year older, had left home probably 6 months prior,
Okay.
and she had been secretly dating an older boy, and he lived with his mother, and so she was living with him,
Mm-hmm.
and his brother had just moved out, who was also an adult, so they had an extra bedroom. So she said, if you pay rent, you can come and stay with us until you graduate 6 months from now. And then my sister and her partner and myself, the three of us, then once I graduated, we all went
Oh,
out and got
thank
married.
God you had somewhere to go.
Yes. Yeah, thank God. Because that would have
Yeah.
been a problem because everyone I knew was in church. They
Yes.
were never going to help,
Right. You'd be
right?
walking down the street with your suitcase and nowhere to go.
Especially since a lot of one of the things narcissistic partners often do is they make sure they're in control of the finances, don't they?
Oh, of course.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That way, that woman, when she's trying to leave her narcissistic partner, especially an abusive partner, it's like I literally have no money and nowhere to go, right?
Right.
That adds
There's
it
nothing.
adds to their separation and isolation, right? The narcissism.
Sure.
Asked on
Oh,
a date in
wow.
high school. Are you kidding me? I was the freakiest church girl with the crazy, terrible hair and the ugly clothes and I was
Oh,
the church freak
no.
that people pointed at as I walked down the street, right? No, that was an added thing. You're already a teenager and then you're the church freak, right? So it was even worse. And I never dated anybody and nobody was ever showed any interest in me until I was 27 years old.
Wow. So
Yeah, it was
all
late.
that time you had to be thinking, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. Wow.
Voice's mother in my head, right? Every
Mhm.
day she told us that was her messaging every day. You girls are fat. You'll never be skinny and beautiful like me. I used to be a model when I was younger for 5 minutes, but I used to be a model, when I was younger and you'll never be anything. And why can't you be like your friend? She's so smart. And why can't you be like that person? And it was always, always the criticism, which is why when he started criticizing that last partner like that, that's why it was such a trigger for me because
Yeah.
my entire childhood was criticism.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is just a lot. I mean, and yeah, you're right. So young that started. And a lot of these memories came back when you
Mm.
started going through your healing journey.
And with writing the memoir,
That's
I'm
right. Perfect.
diving into my life.
Hmm.
And even when she said to me, you're going to start writing, I said, God, how am I supposed to even do that?
Right.
I have a memory like a sieve, like forget it, right? And childhood, forget it. So, do I remember the time I was thrown down the stairs? Yes, I do. Do I remember the time my father hit me with a hammer? Yeah, I do. Do I remember the day we joined the church? Yeah, I do. Do I remember when we were 12 and my parents made us sit through an exorcism and told us you had better watch and you better pray every second that you're watching this because when the demons leave that man, they're going to need somewhere to go and children are an easy target.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That,
This is what
that's fearful. Sure.
I remember that, right? So
Very
I
traumatic.
remember those moments, and that's probably what I remember were those sort of key moments.
Hmm.
The first thing I had to do was sit with my older sister, who remembers everything,
Okay.
and say, I can't write a book if I don't remember the details. I don't need to know our entire history, but here's the
Hmm.
moments I remember. Therefore, they are significant to me, and I'll journal about them. Can you please fill in the blanks? Where were we living when this happened? How old was I when this happened? Do you
Okay.
even remember what triggered the argument, which was less relevant, but there were a few, big things. I was trying to piece them all together. So she was super significant to help with
Okay.
that. Then once I had that picture, as I started to write, I would write and write and write, and then I would get writer's block.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'd go, I know what happens next. What is the problem? Okay, I'm an artist. I understand how art works. Sometimes you're in it, sometimes you're not, right? So I think, oh,
Mhm.
okay, maybe I just have writer's block, or, I've been working on the same paragraph for 3 hours. Clearly, I'm not getting anywhere on this paragraph. I'll put it aside. Then I would realize that the reason I wasn't allowed to write at that moment is because my guides, my spirit, myself was saying to me, you do not get to move forward till you heal that. All that stuff you were just writing about for the last 2 days, whatever, you need to heal that.
Before
So
you
it
can
wasn't
move
like
on.
before you get to move on. Yeah, it wasn't write the whole thing and then go back and heal. No, it was stop and go and stop and go and stop and go. And the beauty of the whole situation is that I started writing and then
Mhm.
COVID hit.
Oh,
I lost my job.
yeah.
I had complete isolation because I live by myself. My family isolated with their kids, right? And that was their bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And the channeler was right. I had 2 years by myself with nothing to do but write this memoir
Wow.
and figure out how to heal. So I would go into meditation, never good at meditation. I'm a Sagittarius. I have a monkey mind. It goes 1,000 miles a minute, right? So I struggled with meditation, let me tell you. But I would try and do it. And I have a very strong inner knowing, my inner voice, my intuition. And now that I pay attention to it, it's even stronger. And something would drop on my head like a memory. And it's not like I would see it or play it out, but it would be like, do you remember when you were 6 years old and she broke a spoon over you? And so none of that's in the book because I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it needed to be healed. It needed to be
Yes.
healed.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's how things started to come to me. So, not full pictures, not
Mhm.
full memories.
Okay. Now, how long, I mean, do you feel you're totally healed, or do you feel your life is a complete healing journey?
I don't think we're ever totally healed.
Okay.
So, I don't think that's a yes for anyone.
I also believe the rest of your life is a healing journey. You are constantly learning, staying away from some of those bad things.
Absolutely. Yes.
So it's nice to hear somebody that for everything that you've gone through and a spiritual healing journey, you connect with that with
Yeah.
with me.
I, well, to go back to your question, personally, I don't think we're ever finished healing, only because I believe in past lives.
Okay.
And so, yes, have I worked on my childhood and healed that? Yeah, you bet. I'm going to revisit that. But I also believe that we have so many things from the thousands of lifetimes that we've lived in. The planet was so dark until it's still dark, but we're slowly, right? It's still dark. But we also program so many things into our soul before we come here from past lives that need to be healed, that how can we ever be finished healing? That's only my opinion. So
Hmm.
do I feel that I've healed childhood? Yes.
Okay.
Do I think I'm finished healing? No, because and also I don't think I'm 100% finished healing childhood either, if I'm being honest, because I think there are so many layers to our healing
Hmm.
that have I forgiven all the big hitters in my life? Yeah, yes.
Oh,
And
that's
I
so
honor
hard.
them and I honor them
Mhm.
and I truly forgive them and I wish them no ill will and I thank them. Ooh, you've gone somewhere when you can thank the people who harmed you the most for the lessons that they taught you. Because the other part of healing for me and being able to truly forgive the people who hurt me the worst is karma. If it was done
Okay.
to you, you've done it to others.
Yeah.
Own your shit. If it was done to you, you've done it to others.
Not all of it, but definitely some of it you've carried on because that
That is karma.
generational conflict. Well, you say it's karma, but what's the difference between karma and generational habits?
Okay. So karma is okay. Our souls are super innocent and they want to learn everything because that's why they come to this planet. And this is a school for our souls.
Okay.
So let's take something like murder. Our soul goes, I really want to know what it feels like to be murdered. Because the soul's that innocent and just goes, yeah, what does that feel like? So we come
Okay.
down here and we get murdered. Okay, now we know what that feels like. Well, in our next lifetime, when we come back, we have to experience the other side of murder. We are the murderer.
All right.
That is karma. Both sides of any situation, that is karma. So this is why I say if it was done to you, you've done it to others.
Interesting.
So if I was betrayed in this lifetime, I probably betrayed someone in my last lifetime. Our soul can't truly understand a situation until they've lived both sides of it, walked a mile in both people's shoes. So it's easier to forgive things when you think, yeah, I probably did that in one of my lifetimes. Do you
That's an
see that that's
interesting
easier to
thought.
find the forgiveness?
Hmm.
Generational trauma. So, also, our souls will often incarnate in the same ancestry because we get invested in that ancestry, into that family, if you will. So, what will also often happen is it's very possible in my last lifetime, I was the mother and my mother was the child and I
Wow.
was the bipolar. Do you see? So
Wow.
this is where it's easier to forgive when we have that understanding that if it
Mm.
was done to you, you've done it to others. You
So
might not
small.
remember, but
Yeah.
sometime in your history of life, we've all done everything at this point, right? So, I mean, this
Yeah.
it's been around for a billion years. So we've incarnated so many times. So this is what helped me to forgive is understanding. So healing generational trauma. So now I choose to be born in this family again because I've been in this family, let's just say 6 or 8 times. I don't know that, but let's just say I've been in this family 6 or 8 times. And
Hmm.
I'm so invested in this family now that I want to be born into this family again. And so I'm also like, yeah, program a whole bunch of trauma into me so we can, let's see if this is a lifetime where we get rid of it. When I heal myself, when I truly work on myself and heal myself, I heal my entire bloodline.
I've heard that. Okay. From energy healers and people who
Yes.
heal.
Yes, you heal
Okay.
your entire bloodline. So think of it this way. Not only will I stop my children now
You're
and
saving
all
the
the generations
generations
that are
ahead.
born,
Hmm.
even souls that haven't been born into this family yet, they might be souls that have also lived in this family before because they're invested for the same reason, right? They've been in this family and so now they want to come back. If you are now sending some healing down into that bloodline, even when they come back, that's that much less trauma that they're going to have programmed into their soul before they even get here because you're working on that bloodline. And that is the beauty of healing is not only is it so good for yourself,
Yeah.
but it affects your entire,
Bloodline.
family.
Who comes
Yeah.
ahead,
Male and female, right? Mom and
Yeah.
dad.
Right. So you mentioned your sister has kids.
Yes.
So they could be healing and their children maybe won't come near a narcissist their entire
Because they don't
life.
have that generational trauma in them, right? So,
Mhm. But you're healing that.
exactly. Because that's what I mean. They won't have that in them because it's been healed and it's been like the buck stops here.
It
That's kind
stopped.
of, right? Like, yeah, yeah.
Well, now see, don't you feel that if more people knew that, they would just heal that abuse to
Oh gosh, I wish
save their
that's my dream.
children? So that's your
Yes.
message.
Well, and save yourself, right? Save
Right.
yourself. You are always going to be first. How can you help anyone else if you can't help yourself? How can you heal
Absolutely.
anyone if you can't heal yourself, right?
Mhm.
No,
You
exactly.
are a martyr. You sacrifice yourself for others. Yeah.
Selfless, right? If you're selfish, you can't be, but we need to redefine selfish as well, because if we don't take care of ourselves at all, how can we help anyone else? How can we?
Selfish should be made to self-care. We're not
Mhm.
being selfish because we're taking care of ourselves. It's self-care. It's so necessary. And I hope we can get that message across to so many people because there's still so many people stuck in that martyr stage. I
Yes.
can't, it's just a lot, a lot. Like parents and people in their 60s and 70s, they're still stuck in that.
Well, look at the generation, right? Like,
Correct.
how strong has the patriarchy been until we're just starting to kick against the
Just
patriarchy,
starting.
right? We're just starting to kick against it. It's going to be a long time before it even changes, but our parents didn't have that.
Right. Right.
Right, in the
You're
60s
starting
you
your
did, right? It
bloodline.
started in the 60s, right? Exactly. Yes, and so we have to have a little patience with the generations who
Yes.
not have what we have.
Hmm.
Um, and find a way to message it to them in the way that they can also understand because it's hard.
Yes.
And the patriarchy, people often think when we talk about the patriarchy that only women are affected in the patriarchy.
Oh gosh,
No,
no.
no. Mm-mm. Any man who doesn't fit into what the patriarchy describes as the breadwinner, the big, strong man who's the breadwinner, takes care of the family, they're also suffering under the patriarchy. But especially women who are told, take care of your family, take care of your kids, take care of your home. You spend all day cooking dinner, and then who's the last person to sit down and eat that dinner? You are.
Yeah. Yes.
Because you're last, because you're always last in the home.
Hmm.
So how do we take care of ourselves when our messaging has always been we're last?
Yeah, for sure. It's a wonderful feeling when you're set free.
Yes, it is.
You're like a whole new person.
Oh my gosh. And you really are because there's that person that reacts to triggers because
Hmm.
that's all you are when you're broken, when there's
Oh my.
trauma, when you're in survival mode. Your whole system, your whole inner system has been hijacked by your trauma, and all you're doing is reacting, reacting, reacting. You have no control. You're just reacting. You think you have control.
Right.
That's why the people with the most trauma are the biggest control freaks,
Yeah.
because they're desperately trying to be in control, but you are not. Your trauma is.
Hmm.
Once you start to heal, man, I embrace my triggers now. Why? Because they grow me.
Yeah.
And because I'm aware of them, that I go, ooh, I just got triggered. Fun. Why? What emotion did that just elicit? Ooh, who am I really mad at? Ooh, this actually reminds me of that person that did that. Cool. This person that just triggered me has absolutely nothing to do with it right now. They were just being a jerk. But that person that it reminds me of, that's what needs to be healed. And that's why I was triggered.
I,
Our soul constantly triggers us to shine a light on what needs to be healed.
wow. That's
So
interesting.
yeah. So
Most people
embrace your
avoid the
triggers.
triggers.
Yes. Then you're still living a life where you're triggered by your triggers. Do you know what I mean? Like you're still, if you're avoiding them, I
Right.
dive right into middle of them. And then I go, oh, so you actually remind me of that person. Cool. Clearly, this is where the layers come in.
Ah.
So I've forgiven the people who need to be forgiven so
Mhm.
like already, but let's say someone triggers me now and I go, wow, you just really got under my skin. Okay, I'm gonna, why? What am I feeling? Angry. Okay, why? You just tried to publicly humiliate me. Ooh, don't like that. Who does that remind me of? Oh my God, my mother. My mother loved to publicly humiliate all of us.
Mm.
So, see, that person was the trigger, but really it's my mother that I'm triggered because of a childhood trauma. So now I go, you know who I actually need to forgive?
You're able to go backwards and just
Yes.
process everything and then move forward.
I'm the source. The
That's a
source
huge
of the
step.
trigger is the mother, not the person that just triggered me. And
Yeah.
so then I can go, okay, I've spent a lot of time healing my mother. I don't need to write and journal for 3 weeks about this and dive into these feelings. I just go, I'm really pissed off because you love to public humiliate me. I'm going to tell you how I feel about that now because walking through the emotion, not around it, right? Don't
Mhm.
bypass it. Here, mom, this is why this upsets me that you used to do this. And now I forgive you for this. Thank you. That's it. And that is a blessing. So I'm sending you love and light too.
Yeah, that's a hard part.
Yes.
That's a very hard part. I think a lot of people get stuck in the processing and sitting in the processing instead of don't move forward in the process. So
Yeah.
that's a big step.
It is. And it wasn't like that at first, right? When I was
Right.
first healing, no, I would sit with one human that I needed to heal from sometimes for an entire week.
Yeah.
Especially because I was writing. I would be writing about that person for months and months and months, right? So I was sitting in it,
Yeah.
journaling, writing, doing what needed to be done. Now that I am, for all intent purposes, healed, if you will, again, I don't think we ever stop healing, but do you know what I'm saying? I've
Right.
so much on healing that
Hmm.
now when I'm triggered, it only takes minutes.
Wow.
And
That's
that is
something to strive
beautiful.
for,
Yes. Yeah.
and that's a really nice message so that people can find hope.
Yes.
They don't have to be stuck like that. There is a process that you're giving us to move on, go through the steps. So that's
Yes.
really interesting. Now you
Mhm.
work with others?
Not at this moment. So what I'm
Okay.
doing right now is I'm almost finished writing the
Your
workbook.
workbook. Okay.
So these tools that I'm talking about now, they're in the workbook because again, these are
Oh, okay,
things that I
great.
wrote down as I was going through them. And
Hmm.
then of course my healing modalities changed a little bit as
Okay.
as I stopped doing deep healing and started to do these
Yes.
like I'm triggered, how do I deal with this now? Then I
Hmm.
would learn how to go through those things. So all of this will be in the memoir. It's very or in the book, it's very practical. There's
Hmm.
space for journaling because you need to, when you're doing the
Right.
inner and then, so here's what she said to me at the time was, you'll write the memoir, you'll follow it up with a workbook, and yes, this is going to lead to workshops, public speaking, that kind of thing. So I'm
Awesome.
not there
Oh,
yet.
I know. The memoir really sucks a lot out of you and brings
Yes.
you to a lot of different places and a lot of triggers, a lot of places,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's almost like you go through oh, I don't know if you went through this, like a mourning period of that past life that you have now moved on from. There was a period of grief almost that
Mm,
there goes that person. I'm letting it go, that freedom, of okay, that's my past. We're gonna keep healing and moving on, moving forward, and which is like
exactly.
every day. Every day there's some trigger. You could do anything and find a trigger. But
Absolutely.
it's
Sometimes
nice
we're
to move
triggered
forward.
and we're just like, I don't even know why I'm triggered, right? Like sometimes you sit there and you go, God, this person really irritated me. And I, for the life of me, can't figure out why. It's like when you meet someone and you don't like them and there's just no
Right.
reason.
There's just an energy
No
about that
reason.
person.
It's probably just in a past life you had some karma or something and we're feeling that. So I've learned to even do that where when someone just kind of gets on my nerve, I'll just go, I don't even know why that's triggering me, but clearly something needs to be healed here because it could be a past life.
Hmm.
So I have no idea what it's triggering. I just go, but I am triggered because you know when you're triggered. And so I'll just
Right.
go, you know what? I'm going to send light and love to that person and spirit, whatever lesson I'm supposed to be learning right now,
Hmm.
either show it to me more clearly because I don't see it, or I'm sending healing to that thing and I'm just going to trust that it's getting done.
Do you still talk to your parents? No.
Not because part of my healing was putting down boundaries.
Oh, that's not good for them.
People feel that when you forgive someone, then it should be okay.
Yeah, you
No.
should tolerate their bad behavior then.
Oh, no, because I'm going to bring you right back to the first person you need to love is yourself.
Mm.
If you love yourself, you're not going to tolerate people like that in your life. And that's where
Okay.
boundaries come in. So my father is gone. He passed away. Um, and when I started to write the memoir, I was in one of these channeling sessions once when she said to me, "Oh, does your dad look like blah, 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 blah?" And I went, "Yep, that's exactly what it looks like." She goes, "Okay, he's here right now, by the way. And he wanted me to tell you that he's really proud of you." And I was like, "What?" She said, "Well, he's on the other side. He knows what he did. And he wanted me to tell you how sorry he is, first of all, and
Hmm.
also how proud he is of you. And he wants you to write this memoir because he wants other people to learn from his mistakes." God, that was huge for me.
Wow.
That was so huge for me because I did not want to write this memoir. I did not want to expose the people who harmed me. I did not want to expose my parents. I really struggled with that.
Is that why you used a different name in the book? Okay.
Yes. And I never intended to put my name on the front of the book.
Okay.
I was never going to do that.
So you were still protecting them.
Yes. Yes, I was. Yes, because I didn't need the real name on it to have the story told. The story is still the
Of
story,
course.
right?
That's right.
And the whole time I was writing, I needed to believe my name wouldn't be on it, or I don't think I would have gotten it out. And it was
Yeah.
only last year, every 6 months, I speak with this channeler, and it was only last year when she said, "Okay, we're ready." We being our spirit team, she's like,
Hmm.
"We're ready. We want," because she made me sit on that book for a year before we put it out there. She's like, "It's not ready. We're not ready. The world isn't ready yet." And so when it was finally done, she's like, "Okay," because I believe in divine timing. And so she said, "Okay, we're ready for you to do this now. Now it's the time." She's like, "And we need to talk about your name." And I was like, "Oh, no, still don't want to, right? Like, I don't want to." And she said, "I know you needed to believe that while you wrote it. But how can you tell people to strip away their masks, to heal the parts of them that need to be healed so that they can stand in their sovereignty, the title of your book, right? If
Right.
you aren't doing that yourself, if you aren't being your true, authentic self,
Yeah.
how can you tell anyone else to do that?" She's like, "And I don't know how many times I have to say this to you, anyways. You're going to go on podcasts and you're going to be a public speaker. Your name isn't just going to be out there. Your face is." And it was like, "Oh, okay." That
Ah.
that was a lot of logic in one, sentence. So I guess I have to do
Wow.
it. And
Yeah.
that's when I put my name on it. Yeah. Because she's
Wow.
right. She's right. How can we be our true authentic self if we won't even say our name?
That is very true. That is very true. You answered so many of my questions about your mom and dad. Well, that is really a story. That's a story. That's a lot. But I can see how it's definitely going to help somebody on different points, being with a narcissist, that there is help for somebody, where to find the help, how you can heal.
Hmm.
And how I think it's really important for people to know that you can heal some of your past traumas, but going forward, it's a journey. You're constantly healing,
Yes.
finding new tools too, and better. So
Oh, good.
again, thank you so much. And I'll let you know when it's ready to come out.
That sounds great. Thank you so
All
much. It was
right.
nice to meet you, Michelle.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you. So, thank you for tuning in to this episode with Tina Djuretic. I think her powerful story of healing and self discovery reminds us of the strength we all have within us. If you found this episode meaningful, please share it with others and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Until next time, take care and keep pursuing your own path to freedom. All links and information on my website, turningpainintostrength.com.